Thank you, Charlie. Good afternoon. My name is Ibrahim, and I'm a physician with a passion for history. My thesis is simultaneously a history of refugees and of medicine, and the branch of medicine I'm most interested in is psychiatry and mental health. My project is a historical study of mental illness and psychological distress in refugees as understood by the mental health professionals and humanitarian organizations caring for refugees. I first became interested in refugee mental health when I started reading media reports and studies on mental illness and trauma in refugees in the Middle East after the Arab Spring. My home country, Egypt, was a host to many refugees fleeing conflict. And so I decided to study the phenomenon historically and ask, how have refugees experienced and expressed psychological distress throughout history, and how have psychiatrists responded to them? The research methodology is mainly archival, so the data collection process involves following the paper trail left by the main actors in each historical episode I study. These are to be found in the archives of humanitarian organizations, United Nations organizations, and medical and academic institutions concerned with refugees. Thanks to a generous LCAS research budget, I've been able to travel to places like Boston, New York, London, Geneva, and Melbourne to conduct archival research. I also survey the published psychological literature and media reports on refugees and immigrants in the period under study. One challenge in my research is trying to find the voices of refugees themselves, which are often absent from these institutional archives, which is a long-running bias in refugee history research. One way I try to address this bias is by incorporating refugee memoirs and oral histories into my research. And from these sources, I try to understand how psychiatric theory has been articulated in refugee contexts when practiced by refugees. My reading of the sources and of the historians that have commented on those sources shows three major themes around which the material can be organized: uprooting, trauma, and confinement. By this, I mean that psychiatrists have generally seen and understood refugee experiences in three ways: through either as people who have lost their homeland, or people who are confined to a camp, or people who have been through traumatizing experiences. I think that each of these three themes speaks to something beyond refugees and medicine. They reflect deep-seated implicit assumptions about how we think of notions of home, culture, belonging, territory, and borders. They're also indicative of media and cultural representations of what it means to be a refugee. And so in my thesis, I hope to historicize the refugee experience by constructing a conceptual history of refuge seeking and exile, in which both psychiatric and popular perceptions are intertwined. Thank you.